Hello guys, welcome to Code with BK. So in this video we see how to find the number of words in a given string. So in the first half I'm going to explain you the steps to solve this problem, and in the second half we are going to look at the codes. So if you're someone who is just looking for codes, there are links to the codes in the description of this video, and to each link there is a text explanation attached as well. So if you're somebody who wants to read and understand, you can take a look at that as well.
Please do not forget to subscribe to this channel and click on the bell icon to receive all the latest updates.
So what do I mean by number of words in a string? Okay, so for example, if I have a string computer science. So for me, a word is a sequence of non-white space characters. Okay, so basically a white space or multiple white spaces will separate two words. Okay, so in this case, I have two words, computer and science. I have another case, say Virat Kohli or Sachin Tendulkar. Okay, in this case, I have 5 words because each word is a sequence of non-white space characters. If there is a space between question mark and the last word, okay, if there is a space, then this is a separate word. In that case, I have 6 words. If this question mark is attached to this word, this is a single word. Let us not worry about if we are including the punctuation or not. Let's stick to a definition that a word is a sequence of non-white space characters. So we will solve this problem based upon the type of input we have. So I will divide the input in 3 possible cases. Case A is when you have only one space between 2 words and no leading or trailing white spaces. So this is the easiest of the case where you have only one white space between 2 words. No leading white spaces mean there is no white space before the first word, okay? And no trailing white space means there is no white space between the final word, okay, the last word. The second case is greater than or equal to 1 white spaces between 2 words. So 2 words can be divided by multiple white spaces. For example, if I remove this, so I can have say 4 white spaces in between, or I can have 3 white spaces in between, more than 1, okay, but at least 1. That is why greater than or equal to white space between 2 words, okay, and again no leading or trailing white spaces in this case. The final is the most generic case, okay, where I can have greater than or equal to words, white spaces between 2 words, and leading and or trailing white spaces are possible in this case. So let's take another example. So say if I have 2 spaces, I'll say learn 2 spaces to 1 space code with BK, and maybe add 2 more trailing white spaces, okay. So this particular symbol is basically to demonstrate a space here, okay. So let's solve this based upon each case. So how do you find the number of words? In the first case, you simply say number of words is going to be number of white spaces plus 1. For example, number of words, if this is single space, no leading trailing white spaces, number of words is 2. In this case, 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces, so number of words are 5. So this is very simple. We iterate the string from left to right and count the number of white spaces. So let's write a pseudocode function num words, okay, takes a string s, okay, returns the number of words in this string, okay. So number of words, okay, I set it to 0 and I return number of words, and then this code here, okay, goes based upon the type of input which is defined in the question, okay. This is being the most generic type, okay. So if there's nothing defined, you should go with this one. So in this case, you need to iterate the string from left to right. So I say I is set to 0, number of white spaces is 0, while I is less than length of the string s, okay, if is white space. So this is a function that checks if s of I is a white space, and there are different ways to do this in different programming languages. We will check that out in the implementation. If this is the case, you simply set number of white spaces is number of white spaces plus 1, okay, and if, alright, and you increment I by 1. You can do a for loop as well. I'm doing a while loop because in the next case I'm going to modify this while loop, okay, and then finally you do number of words is number of white spaces plus 1, and you end while loop, and this is your pseudocode for the first case. So for the first case, you insert this between these two lines and you get your code. So if we try run this on the example, suppose this one, so we have indices 0, 1 till the last index, okay? In this case, the if condition is true only if the ith character in string s is a white space, okay? And if it is a white space or not, in either cases, you move on to the next index. So you stop only if it is a white space, so not white space, moving forward, okay? So this is a white space, okay? So in this case, you say number of white space becomes 1, okay? And you keep moving forward till the end of the string. So number of words is now 1, number of white space plus 1, number of words is now 2, okay? Since you had one single space. Coding the next case now. So one or more than one white spaces between two words. So I use this very same pseudocode, but I modify this a little, okay? So I'll copy this here. I'll say I set to 0 again. I is I plus 1. Now let's take this case and we remove the leading and trailing white spaces for now. The idea is that we iterate from left to right, and moment we find a space, we increment the number of white spaces by 1, and we skip all the following continuous white spaces till we find a non-white space character. And if we encounter a non-white space character, we simply move on to the next index. So there are two cases. If is white space s of I, okay? Else, if this is not a white space, you simply do I is equals to I plus 1. So for a case, if we find a white space, we increment number of white spaces by 1. This is the same as in the previous case. But we also skip all the following continuous white spaces till we find a non-white space character. That is, I say while I is less than length of s and is white space s of I do I equal to I plus 1. Okay, so you can write it as a simple and then finally you have number of words is, so while loop ends here, number of words is number of white spaces plus 1. Okay, pseudocode for B cases this. Okay, let's try run this on this example. So I start with 0 and I go right. Again, I have two conditions. If ith character in string s is a white space, else if it is not a white space. For not a white space, I move on to the next index. For white space, I process. Not white space, moving. I got a space here. You do number of white spaces plus 1. So number of white spaces now becomes 1. Okay. You say while I is less than length of s, this is the last index. This is the length basically here. Okay. And if it is white space s of I, if it is, yes, you do I plus 1, you go here, I comes here. Then again, I is less than length of s 2 and is white space s of I. This is a white space 2, it moves on to the next index, I comes here, okay, at t. I is less than length of s2 and is white space s of I, false because t is not a white space. So you come out of this, if else you come here, okay. While loop ends here. Then your I is here, again you check I is less than length of s is true. For non-white space character, you move on to the next. For non-white space character, you move on to the next. Okay, you come here. This is a white space. You do number of white spaces plus 1. This becomes 2. And you do while I is less than length of s and is white space s of I plus 1. So this condition is true. Okay, so I now comes here. Okay, you check again. I is less than length of s, is white space s of I is false. Okay, you come out of the loop. You come here. Okay. You check this condition again, and for non-white space characters, you keep moving on till you find a space. You find a space, you come here. Okay, you do number of white spaces plus 1. You make this 3. Okay, while I is less than length of s and it is white space, I is equals to I plus 1. I was here, I moved on here. Again, this condition is true. I moved here. Again, this condition is true. I moved here. This condition is false. You come here. Okay. You check for while loop condition again. This is a non-white space character. For that, we just increment index. We go to a white space. Okay. Again, if this is a white space, you increment number of white spaces. This becomes 4. Okay. And again, you skip all the following white spaces till you find a non-white space character. You come here. Check for while loop condition again. For all non-white space characters, you skip. Okay. And finally, I reaches the length of the string. So you stop and finally you said number of words white space is plus 1, so number of words in this case is 4 plus 1, 5. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Moving to the last case, which is the most generic case where two words can be divided by any number of spaces and they can be leading and trailing white spaces. So we solve this in two steps. First, we remove the leading and trailing white spaces. So when we do that, it becomes case 2. Okay, it becomes the second case where you can have more than one spaces between two words, but no leading or trailing white spaces. So how do you remove leading and trailing white spaces? So suppose if I add leading white spaces here, say 1, 2, 3, 4, and trailing white spaces, say 2 spaces. Okay. So I need to remove this part and I need to remove this part. So what do? I start from left, which is A0, so index 0 will be here. Okay. And I go till the first non-white space character, which is at index, say 4 in this case. 0, 1, 2, 3 and 4. L is at 4. Okay. So A becomes 4 and then you extract the substring starting from 4. So basically you remove this part and you get only learn till this end. Okay. Okay. This is how you remove leading white space. To remove trailing white space, you start with the end. Okay. You start with the last index, which is length of s minus 1, and you go towards left side. And as soon as you find the first non-white space, you stop. Okay. Okay, and then you find the substring from 0 to b plus 1. Okay, from this string. Okay, 0 to b plus 1 because we want to include the b part, the index b, right? So this removes this white space part. So what we did here was we removed this part and we got this string. Okay, and then we from this string we removed this part. So we removed leading and trailing white spaces. Let's see how do we do that in the code. So we have a set to 0, okay, while a is less than length of s, okay. If not is white space s of a, you break, okay, else you say a is a plus 1, okay. So a will stop at the first leftmost non-white space character, so you can remove this part from the entire string. So you can say s is s dot sub str from a. Then you have to remove the trailing white spaces. You start with b at length of s minus 1. You do while b is greater than equal to 0. If not is white space s of b, okay, you break, okay, and you have to move right to left, so you do b equals to b minus 1, and then you do s is s dot sub str starting from 0 till b plus 1. Okay, so you remove the trailing white spaces as well. Okay, so this is the part that you do first, okay, and then followed by this, okay, for this most generic case. So what if we have only a blank string, suppose say has 4 spaces, okay. So in this case what will happen, a will run to this length of the string, so a will become 4, okay. So when you do s dot sub str 4, when length of the string is 4, you get a blank string. Then you do b is length of s minus 1, so length of s in this case is 0 now, and you get b as minus 1. So when you get b as minus 1, this loop will never run because minus 1 is not greater than equal to 0. So you come out here. So you do s dot sub str 0 till minus 1 plus 1. So 0 till 0. So whenever indices are the same in substring, you get a blank string. Okay. So even if you have all blanks, this code will work and you'll not get an exception. So let me know if there is another border case that I'm missing. Okay, you can let me know that in the comments. So I hope this video was helpful. So please do like this video and subscribe to my channel. And let's move on to checking the codes now.
So this is the implementation of our first case where two words in the string are separated by a single white space character and there are no leading and trailing white spaces. So I've written the function getNumWords that takes a string s, returns the number of words in this string, starting with numWords is equal to 0 and finally returning the number of words. Inserting the code that we discussed for this case, we start with numWhite space is equal to 0. We iterate the string using a while loop. In each iteration, we pick up the ith character in the string. We check if character C is a white space. Then we increment the number of white spaces by 1 and we move on to the next iteration. Finally, after the while loop, number of words is number of white spaces plus 1. So let me run this. Alright. You can either use this to check if C is a whitespace character, or you can use this character.isWhitespace method that takes the character C and returns true if this is a whitespace. So this also covers \t, \n apart from the single whitespace character. Okay. So running this again, I have, okay, changing this to say computer science, compile and run, and we get 2. This is the implementation of our second case where we have no leading and trailing white spaces, but 2 words can be separated by 1 or more whitespace characters. So I have the getNumWords method again, takes a string s and returns the number of words in this string. Inserting the code for this case here. In this case too, we iterate the string. We pick up the ith character in each iteration in the string. We use character.isWhitespace to check if C is a whitespace character. If it is, we increment the number of whitespaces by 1 and then we skip all the following whitespaces. Otherwise, if C is not a whitespace character, we increment I by 1. Finally, number of words is number of whitespaces plus 1 and we return the number of words. So let me run this, and in the example you can see I have used more than one whitespace between 2 words. So Java C, this is 2 Java, okay, this is correct. Let me take another example, say with, okay, so number of words are 2. So this is a final case where 2 words may be separated by more than one whitespace characters, as well as the string may have leading and trailing whitespaces. Okay. So the code in this case remains exactly the same as it was in the previous case. The only difference is that we trim the string, that is, we remove the leading and trailing whitespaces before we move on to the processing. So I've written a helper method trim that takes a string s, returns the trim the string, that is, returns a string with leading and trailing whitespaces removed. So let me run this, and you can see in the example we have leading and trailing whitespaces and more than one whitespace between 2 words. So this is case 3. Alright. So let me change this to something else. I'll say Virat Kohli and Sachin Tendulkar. Okay. So let me run this, and this has 5 words as well. One last thing is that there is already a predefined method in Java that removes the leading and trailing whitespaces from a string. So to remove leading and trailing whitespaces from s, you can call s.trim. So this method returns a fresh string by removing the leading and trailing whitespaces from s, and then we store this string back into s. So let me run this, it will give us the same output. Okay, let me add few more trailing whitespaces, compile, run, and it works. So I hope this video was helpful. So please do like this video and subscribe to my channel. And please let me know in the comments if there's something not clear to you in this video, if there is a concept you want me to discuss, or if there's a question you want me to solve. Thank you.